Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
So when I was working on Selena, the series for Netflix, to play the role of Abraham Quintanilla, I put on a specific amount of weight, which I was fine doing, but also realizing it could be difficult to get that weight off. I got back into my physical regimen with James Leja, but I was still having trouble with just those last amounts. And that's when I got to meet Arturo from Laredo Medical Weight Loss Clinic. And just the products that he gave me kind of put me over the edge. I feel great about myself.
We're back at you in Gloves Off, and today we have a tremendous guest, a pillar in our community here in Texas, U.S. Congressman Henry Cuellar. How are we doing, Congressman?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing today?
Good. We're just here moving along here and trying to see which way Texas is moving forward.
Yeah.
How do you see it?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of good things, and there's some things that, we need to recalibrate a little bit, in my opinion. But first of all, let's talk about immigration. I've always been very strong on immigration. The numbers started going down last year, but this year, with the new policies, no catch and release, which I support. I don't want to see catch and release. Getting Mexico to do more to stop drugs, to stop illegal migration to the U.S. has been good. In fact, President Trump has gotten Mexico attention, where they sent over, 29 of the baddest people that we've been wanting to get for a long time. Unprecedented getting those numbers over there, those drug dealers. Including the person that killed that DA agent, Kike Camarena. And so all that is good. The numbers have gone down tremendously, and that's the way it should be. Look, I want people to come into the United States, but they got to do it the right way. My father was born in Guerrero, Tamaulipas, became a legal resident, then a naturalized citizen. Took him a long time, but he did it the right way. The way it was happening, where there were so many people coming in, and after a while, we had gang members here. The gang members from Venezuela, gang members, the MS-13 and other folks, and now we're sending those people back. Is one of the things that we are, we certainly want to work with the president on those things that he's doing right.
Absolutely. And, it affects everybody. It affects a lot of the communities. We might not see it as harsh here in Laredo, but when you go to Dallas, other areas, you see that influence.
Yes. Yeah. And you're right, Paul. It's, in Laredo, we might not see it like in other places. Laredo's been the second, maybe right now we're the third lowest crossing in the whole nation. We don't get the traffic like other places. We're literally in Laredo, one of the lowest crossings, so we don't get to see a lot. But in other places, the Valley, Eagle Pass, Del Rio, El Paso, and places in Arizona, New Mexico, those numbers are real. The problem is there were so many people coming in, Paul, and they were coming in not traditionally, as you know, they were coming in from Mexico. Then in the 2000, they started coming in from Central America. Then people said, hey, all you have to do is go to the border and say you want asylum, and they let you in. Where now we're getting people from over 150 countries. The problem, Paul, was when they come from Venezuela, they come from Cuba and China and other places, those countries don't share criminal records like Mexico does, or Honduras, or El Salvador. And so when they're coming in, unless you can see the tattoos or something that can give them away, they were coming into the U.S. blindly. Our personnel did not have that information, the criminal records, unless if we had some hit on them. But a lot of times we didn't have them. So they came in, and then guess what? They turn out to be rapists, murderers, people that are harming individuals. And we saw what they did to that 12, 13-year-old little girl in Houston and other places. The Lake and Riley is another one. And I think I was the only Democrat in the House of Representatives that co-sponsored the legislation because, we should not be protecting criminals. We should be on the side of our communities and not criminals. So those are the things that we might not see here in Laredo, but they became very real in other parts of the country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else do you see coming forth towards Laredo? How about stuff for small businesses and that? Because that's been impacted. And many small businesses haven't been able to reassure themselves even after the pandemic.
Yes. And, the pandemic was something that happens every 100 years. I think the last time was the Spanish flu in 1898, somewhere around there. And now, we saw the pandemic. It's been, almost 5 years, 4.5 years. And it looks like it just happened yesterday. So that had an impact where the world literally shut down. That affected the supply chain. And when it affects the supply chain, when you try to go back, the U.S. did a better job than many other countries in getting back, but you still have this uneven supply chains, and companies and factories didn't open up as fast as we did here in the U.S. So that affects the cost of transportation, that affects the cost of goods, affects the cost of energy, and that affects the feed. The things that we use in our ranches, fertilizer, that has an impact. That's one of the other reasons why the prices of eggs have gone up, because the prices of eggs, you have the cost of feed and production have gone up. But what happened is we had the cost of the flu, the avian flu, and since 2022 to now, or the end of the year, we lost over 166 million hens. And imagine you take out 166 million hens from production. That means less eggs, and therefore the prices go up. And we're trying to temporarily import some eggs from, I think the countries are Mexico and Turkey, but we need our production to go back again. So those are the rural businesses, that type of businesses. The other businesses in our area, we need to make sure that we support them. In fact, I got together with the regional U.S. director in San Antonio. He worked for Trump under the first Trump administration. He's back again. I told him I wanted him to come down to Laredo, and he said he would come down, and certainly, so we can invite the small businesses. He's based there in San Antonio. So those are the things that we are looking at. The other thing, of course, the tariffs. And, like I said, I, want to work with the president on many things, especially immigration. But on tariffs, I think we need to be a little bit more careful, because you don't want to add 25% cost tax on goods, and especially to our friends like Mexico, Canada. And I sat down with the Mexican ambassador last week, and we said, hey, is Mexico working with the U.S.? And, you read some of those things, Paul. They moved 10,000 troops to secure the borders. They sent 29 of the baddest people over. I think they just sent one of the top MS-13 leaders that they had in Mexico to the U.S., extradited to the U.S. So Mexico is working with us, and they're doing more to bust those fentanyl areas. But we cannot have tariffs on it, especially if you're not careful on how you add the tariffs. Understand that when an import comes from when an import comes from China or Europe, it has about 4% American products. When a product comes in from Canada, it'll have about a 24% American parts. But when something comes in from Mexico, a lot of cars, trucks that come in, it has 40% American parts. 40% American parts. So if you put a tariff on a Mexican import, guess what you're doing? You're putting a tariff on 40% on American goods. So we just got to be a little bit careful on how we do those tariffs.
Could it be reworded?
Oh, absolutely. There's ways he can do that. And look, we're working on the agreement that the Trump administration and Congress voted and supported under the first Trump administration. So this is his agreement that he worked. And there is a provision there that next year there's going to be a revision or review of the agreement. So we have an opportunity to look at that next year. And we have to look at it. We did look at the rules of origin, but what we're seeing right now is China is circumventing those rules of origin. And we need to make sure that we don't let China go into Mexico, because they're doing that already right now in Central America. And then they call it a Mexican product when it's really mainly a Chinese product. So those are some of the things that certainly I want to sit down with the administration and work on those rules of origin.
You know, it seems that right now there's turbulence throughout, because a lot of people are not sure which way the country's going to move forward. But I think, and overall, I think we're going to end up in a pretty good place. I think we're going to come down and work together like it should be.
We all want any president, whether it was President Obama, President Bush, President Trump. We want the president to succeed. I'm a Democrat, but we want our president to succeed. And if the president and Congress works together, then the country is going to do better. Right now, we've done well on immigration. We need to work closer on the economy because things are still expensive. I talked about the price of eggs and why they're expensive on it. But we got to work together. I know that the administration, on some of the layoffs, they got rid of some of the avian flu inspectors. We cannot do that because we need those inspectors to go into those industries, the egg farms, to make sure that we don't have the spread of the avian flu, because we have killed or slaughtered or culled 166 million hens. This year, almost 30 million hens. So when you kill, and Paul, what happens if you have a farm and you have one chicken that has the avian flu? Guess what? We have to slaughter all of them. What's the difference between Canada and the U.S.? They get some avian flu, but it's different. In Canada, you have a whole bunch of smaller farms where they raise poultry or the chickens. And if they get one, it's a small farm that has to slaughter all the chickens. But in the U.S., we moved into big farms and ranch and places, and they're much bigger. So if one hen gets a flu or gets the avian flu, guess what? You wipe out a whole bunch of chickens. So instead of wiping out 1,000, you'll wipe out, let's say, 10,000, just as an example. And therefore, it affects the cost. So we got to work together on reducing the cost of things.
Absolutely. What else do you see? What else are you working on too?
I sit on the Appropriations Committee. I sit on defense, and I want to talk a little bit about defense. I sit on Homeland Appropriations, and I sit on the Military Construction / VA. And those are important ones. I'll talk about the military. We want to make sure the military has the best equipment, training, so we can be ready. We can be ready for any sort of threat to the U.S. The president has been using some of the military to help us on border security. And look, the military has come down for border security under Bush, under Obama, under Biden, and under Trump. One of the things that I want to see is, bringing the military is very expensive, very, very, very expensive. But I like what the administration is doing. They're using now more the military on the U.S. side to use those birds or those aircraft to provide surveillance along the border to help Border Patrol. That's good. They're bringing a lot more intelligence officers, and that's good because you can see what the bad guys are doing, and it can be provided for Border Patrol. But also, they're going to be looking. I sat down with the head of Northcom, and I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks because I sit on defense appropriations. They're going to be doing joint patrols with the Mexican army along the border. That's going to be good. Then they're going to be doing maritime along the Mexican border or maritime border. That's going to be good also. So they're doing things that are a little different. The other things, and I think this is public knowledge, is the intelligence agencies, not the military. We know why the military cannot fly over Mexico because of the war that we have with them many years, and they're very sensitive about that. But there are intelligence agencies that are flying over Mexico that have, very precise equipment, and they can provide a lot of information to the Mexican military, especially the Marines there, the Navy, so they can go after the bad guys. So a lot of the success that the Mexicans have been getting is because of the intelligence that we're providing. So they're using that in a different way because in the past, they would bring in National Guards. They would be in the control centers where the cameras, and Paul, they will be there with a joystick moving the cameras. Hey, we got AI that can do that. We got artificial intelligence that can do that. We got other technology. I don't want to see soldiers sitting behind a desk using the joysticks, looking at the cameras. No, let's use technology and get them to do things that will be very useful for Border Patrol.
Do you think we're going to end up seeing more private companies going inside, like private security companies doing adjacent work instead of our military in Mexico?
I think I saw a story. I think I know what you're talking about. I don't know. We don't know. That is something that I will ask when the department, when the Secretary of Defense will come before our committee, and I'll ask him questions. There is talk about that, but again, we don't know what the plans are. But when they come and do our budgets, their appropriations, we will have time to ask him questions.
Well, anything else you see for Laredo coming?
We got a lot of good projects coming in. First of all, the Air Marine base on the Air Force. On the air base that we have. I got them now. I think it's almost $60 million to put 2 large hangars in a big office space. When you get that much hangars, they can work on aviation mechanics, repairs, and then store some of those birds or those planes. So it can be for helicopters, it can be for planes. And when you got that much space, that will allow us to bring more assets, so more planes down here, and that will be good for border security and jobs here. That's one thing. The Border Patrol checkpoint, we got the monies to do the study, the design. We're hoping, I was told yesterday, I was asking, when will they have the design? They're hoping they can have it by the summertime. Once they have the design, we'll find out exactly, how much money I need to find to do that design, to construct it. It's going to be a lot of money, but I tell you, it will be the largest checkpoint in the country because Laredo's the number 1 port. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I was coming from San Antonio, and you've seen this, Paul, those lines of 18-wheelers coming in. So we're going to have the largest checkpoint on that. So we got that. We're also got the expansion working with Senator Cruz. We're able to do legislation so we can do the World Trade Bridge, go from 8 to 18 lanes. The Columbia, we're still waiting on that. The 4-5 got also under our legislation, got permitted. So there's a lot of work to be done. I came in, I just took a tour with the Department of Transportation and on Monday, and it is literally hundreds of millions of dollars. You've seen the Loop 20. That part there, it's about $380 million, mainly federal dollars. 80% are federal dollars, 20% from the state. You add the right-of-ways and other work, it's about $500 million on what we're seeing. And I want you to think about this, Paul. If we are going to have on the highway on the loop, it's going to have 3 lanes going south, 3 lanes going north or east, depending what part you're at. 3 going down, 3 going the other way. Then the access road will have on one side 3 lanes going down, and then on the other side 3 lanes going out. That's 12 lanes. 12 lanes. And on top of that, we're going to have space for bicycle and walking for the pedestrians or the bicyclists. So it's going to change completely on this phase, totally about $500 million just for this phase on Loop 20. Every time I fly in from Washington, I see, and it is amazing. We put some pictures up on that. We'll send you some of those photos, if you want to post them also. But that Loop 20 is going to be incredible. We went to the Charles Ruthinger, which is that exit from the Mines Road to 35. It's about 7-8 miles. And that's going to be amazing also because it's going to create an exit from Loop, from the Mines Road all the way to 35. Release some of the pressure there of all those 18-wheelers. Then we're going to have the Vacío coming down the lane, in the future. That's going to provide another relief valve also. But the other thing that we're looking at is what they're doing in San Antonio. We're going to do the same thing in Laredo on the Mines Road. Right now you have the Mines Road. There are so many 18-wheelers, and it's very hard to live there for the non-commercial vehicle. We're looking at the possibility of putting not only the road that we have, but another Mines Road on top. So you'll literally have, we're going to have when you're going out of San Antonio to Austin, they have that elevated. We're going to do the same thing. That's what our plan is, to have an elevated platform on the Mines Road. So it's going to cost a lot of money, but in Congress, we send the largest amount of federal dollars that the state has ever gotten. All these projects that we're seeing here are mainly federal dollars, 80% done by the state. And I want to thank Epi Gonzalez, the engineer, and everybody. They're doing a great job. They're working hard, on time, and on budget, which I appreciate. But 80% of those are federal dollars. We've never seen those dollars are coming in. And we got more announcements to do that on federal dollars coming in for the highway. So we want bridges and a lot of trucks, but we need transportation, and we're working on that.
Well, thank you for doing that, because we do need it, and it's going to be well needed here in Laredo because of the trucks. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And finally, let me just conclude with this. It's transportation dollars. We're doing a lot of Homeland Security dollars, a lot of Homeland Security. We're hiring people for Homeland. So if you know anybody that wants to work for Border Patrol, we put monies there to hire 22,000 Border Patrol agents, and they're short. If you know any young person that wants to go work with them, they should apply. So we're putting money for Air Marine, a new base, a new processing detention center, $280 million, the transportation. So there's so much money coming into the Laredo area. And, we want our community to grow, but still keep that family style that we've had here. It's our home community, and we're going to continue doing that.
Thank you so much for doing that. And for those out there listening, and you're young enough, let's go get a job with the Border Patrol. That's what you want to do. And right now it's open. Where can they go get that? Here at the local station, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They can. I'll send it over to you where they can apply. And again, look, right now the administration is making some cuts, but one area they're not cutting, because we put money to hire more, are Border Patrol agents. It's a tough job. You can either go work for TSA, you can work for Air Marine, You can work for OFO, which are the men and women in blue. They're hiring also. OFO is also looking for pilots also. And then Border Patrol is looking for a lot of people. We'll send you a link, but they can certainly contact the local Border Patrol folks.
Well, Congressman, we're running out of time. I know you're a busy man, and you're running right now. You have an event this afternoon, which we'll be sharing. And once more, thank you for your service, and thank you for keeping Laredo going forward.
Thank you. And let me just say one thing, Paul. I really appreciate what you do with your martial arts. I know you've been doing that for so many years, but you really have transformed a lot of people, a lot of young folks over the years. Even my daughters took classes with you for a while. You know, one of them is over there in DC right now, but I remember taking them to your class. So I certainly encourage people to check out what you do, because again, you really have provided that discipline, that mental toughness that a lot of the young people need. It's not only physical, but it's mental. I've gone to some of your awards days for so many years, and I really appreciate what you do in molding some of your young people through the martial arts training that you provide. So thank you for that, and to your wife also, and your family also, your son.
Thank you. That's humbling to coming from man of your stature. Thank you. And let's keep moving forward. And remember, folks, here's our congressman. Listen, if you need a job, Border Patrol is offering, and maybe there's some other jobs out there. We'll whatever comes out, list it out and send it to us, and we'll post it as well. Yes, and finish for now, but you all stay safe, be safe, and God bless you all. Congressman, have a great day.
Thank you so much, Paul.